Hi, it's Norman Koshnick here for Eyes on Cricket with Norman Koshnick. I'm here today to talk about some further articles that have come out this morning in the Sydney Morning Herald. The Sydney Morning Herald, of course, has guest writers such as former Australian captain and batsman Greg Chappell. He has written an article today, along with both Malcolm Knox and Andrew Wu. So those three gentlemen have written fairly significant articles. Again, the lingering effects of the tests and the test series, in fact the entire series. Greg Chappell writes specifically about India. He talks about the fact that tourist series win should come as no surprise, and he further just simply says only surprise is that anyone can compete with India at all. So he further accentuates the fact that he sees India as a powerhouse, and he quotes the Chinese philosopher LaoTzu. He said there is no greater danger than underestimating your opponent, and that's true. It's very much what Australia did. But the Australian think tank, including Justin Langer and the like, certainly did look at the fact that they underestimated India somewhat, especially on the basis after the Adelaide Test was won and the fact that Virat Kohli was going home. I think most Australians, if not the selectors, probably thought that same process was the case. So he talked in terms of, this is Greg Chappell, talked in terms of India's virtual bottomless player pit or pool, coupled with their massive investment in the game, and has created a conveyor belt, as he puts it, of test-ready talent. And that's quite an interesting point, the fact that you did have a second, potentially even going to a third level of side that played, and they played exceptionally well. So he talks in terms of Australia. On the other hand, Australia's young cricketers are weekend warriors. So they're weekend warriors compared to the Indian compatriots who get challenging match play from the under-16 level up, from that age group right through that period onwards continuously, whereas they're calling Australian young cricketers weekend warriors, which is an interesting concept actually, and I can sympathise with that. Now, Malcolm Knox is another renowned writer for the Sydney Morning Herald, along with Chris Barrett, and Malcolm coins a heading here with an incredibly interesting little picture: Bold India caught Australia, and the vanquished must heed the warning. So effectively, Bold India caught Australia. So that's caught them napping, which is quite true. The fact is they weren't expected to win. And he goes on to say, whatever insults were dealt out to the Indian cricket team on its historic tour, they rebounded on the insulter. Likewise, if Australian cricket doesn't realise it has been comprehensively, memorably and spectacularly defeated, it will be insulting Indians yet again, and to its own detriment. That's really well put. The fact is, it's a combination of both. We underestimated them, and now that we've been beaten quite soundly by them, we need to also now take into account, take stock, and actually do change and do initiate changes. I'd say definitely at the state level and grassroots level to counter what India is growing into, or if not already are. It's particularly interesting, and its actual photograph shows we're running out of sticks and stones, and you see the fieldsmen, and India not bothered at all by it. So that fear factor has certainly gone. There's another quote here which is interesting. The adaptability and freedom we saw from the Indian batsmen on Tuesday are the expression of minds unconstrained by old notions of what is possible. That's very well put indeed. Very interesting article. So that's Malcolm Knox. After Greg Chappell saying that it was no surprise that they won, Malcolm talks in terms of being caught out, well, they need to learn from that and heed from the warning. Then the third article is Andrew Wu. Andrew Wu, another very, very good journalist, very insightful. He actually has spoken to wicketkeeper Carey, and he asked him what he would like to do, because he is seen as the heir apparent to Tim Paine's position. And Carey made it very clear that he does want to he has strength of character to want to play for Australia in the red ball game. And he talks in terms of Carey would rather be a test bench player than play T20. So he preferred to let go of the T20 circuit and play as a test bench warmer pending Tim Paine's eventual departure. And that's interesting. And Andrew goes on to say, Australia's heir apparent behind the stumps, Alex Carey, has declared he is ready to play test cricket. should he be required in South Africa despite a dearth of red ball matches. So effectively, he hasn't had too much of an opportunity to play red ball, but he's very happy to go there in readiness for that. So Alex Carey is certainly making his play on being the next keeper and maybe the next captain. On the other end of the scale, Ian Chappell and former captains Ian Chappell and Mark Taylor have come out in the press, Channel 9 today, and both effectively defended Tim Paine. Mark Taylor says his performances have been outstanding. He should be exemplified by his work despite the loss. They need to not get carried away with the loss and start throwing players out. And then you look at Ian Chappell. Ian Chappell said, well, we haven't got much choice. We haven't got much around to actually take on the Test captaincy mantle. Pat Cummins is somewhat there, but they really haven't got a depth of players ready to go into the captaincy role. So hence we may have to stick to Tim Paine. And as Mark Taylor said, he still did a great job despite all what's been said. So that's an interesting perspective in itself. So for India leading into their Test series against England, that's only next week. We've obviously got the Sri Lanka versus England match happening in the second day today, and Australia versus South Africa, which will be quite an interesting situation on how they handle that. So again, this is Norman Kochnick from Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnick. Stay tuned, I've got some great guests coming up in the next few days.